Hey, welcome to Two Seals and a Walrus. I am your host, Sean Webb. Today we're going to talk about Edward Snowden. Is he a traitor or a patriot? With his new release of his book, Permanent Record, on the only podcast that has two United States Navy SEALs, count them 1, 2, over here to my right on the couch. We have Ben Johnson, United States Navy SEAL, sniper, and medic. And to his right, we have Doug Moulton.
There we go.
Down on the end of the couch.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So
This is Sean Moulton.
to give you guys a clue, I started mixing up a whole bunch of names in our first run at this. So anyway, we're going to have a serious discussion here about Edward Snowden and his actions to out the NSA's secret programs to have the ability to use surveillance on folks internationally and also nationally, to the point that there are systems that record every one of your emails, every one of your phone calls, can listen in to your smart devices, turn on the microphone when you're not knowing it, turning on your camera when you're not knowing that it's on, and recording your information for a later review based on what a rubber stamp court gives the people in charge to be able to look at. But then also what he exposed in his book was a bunch of 20-something guys who look at this technology with impunity, sharing videos of guys getting blowjobs that they're taking on their phone that they may not even be recording, that they're just passing this stuff around, etc., because of the structure that the NSA uses to keep their hands clean, to say, hey, we want this information, but we're going to hire you, Mr. Subcontractor, and give you access to this information to say, let us know the bad guys that you find, etc. But these folks who are in charge of this information are kind of abusing access to the information, and Edward Snowden was one of those folks who was in that group of folks.
Well, I mean, access to the information in the first place is an abuse of the Constitution of,
Right, without legal search and seizure, right?
So,
Fourth Amendment.
well, so to kind of open up to, maybe some people listening have or haven't heard some stuff, I want to open up with a little parable. I was at a fundraising event a couple years ago, and maybe this wasn't the time for me to take a stance on this topic, but someone was like, it was in context somehow, and they're like, Snowden's what a fucking traitor, huh? They said it to me, and I was in a suit with my Navy SEAL trident pin on my lapel, and I was like, is he? And they're like, well, and they were like, they were physically taken back by my reaction. And they're like, well, yeah, he is, isn't he? I was like, well,
According to him.
and I said, I wasn't being a dick or patronizing. I was like, well, why do you think he is? I was like, what's your opinion?
Right.
And they go, well, he's in the news about he released all information. He's a traitor. I go, okay, what makes him a traitor? And they're like, well, he released sensitive stuff. And I said, this was my reaction. I said, well, are you cool with all the information on your phone, all your search history, being archived by the government and used when they want? And they're like, well, no. I go, okay, well then is he a traitor? And they're like, well, crap, I don't know now.
Yeah.
And I was like, in my head, I was like,
Idiot.
research that shit, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, and I was really surprised. Like, I read his book, Permanent Record, and a lot of the stuff that he shared in that book was a surprise to me. Like, the history that his family had was very similar to my family's history, that every one of his generations, or people in every one of his generations, served the United States government in some capacity back a number of generations. And so I was able to identify with that. I was able to identify with, his story of kind of being this advanced person who got promoted at a young age to these high levels of security clearance and knowing and have accessing to really advanced technology, because I have experience of that as well. But these two guys on the couch, of course, have that to where they're given high security clearances, given a lot of access to information that is very sensitive to the United States, etc. But I was surprised at how much he had thought through and really broken down the action of taking that information that he knew and sharing it with the press, and how much of a good ground rule set that he had put in place with the press to say, don't release anything that could be damaging to individuals or governments, but also at the same time, don't create like clickbait. Don't tell stories just to create stories, to create readership from your viewers. but tell a good story on what may not be a good use of technology for the United States government to simply access everybody's information with impunity or everybody's devices with impunity. And I get it. I mean, I get it. You know, I've been working on the algorithms of human emotion and understanding what it takes to be able to define, track, and predict human emotions in a human based on their reactions to environmental content. And I know that, you know, that kind of technology, because I've had these discussions, you know, I was speaking at the Science of Consciousness conference, and some folks who are connected with the NSA came down and bought lunch, and we were having a discussion about how you could literally create automated terror watch lists based on identifying who has certain thoughts and certain reactions to certain environmental variables, and be able to identify the bad guys before they become bad guys or before they become organized, etc. But then we also went into the realm of, you know, if authoritarian regimes get that technology, then they could also identify the people who are going to stand up against their authoritarian regimes before they get organized, etc., and take those folks out, which then gives a tool for authoritarian regimes to remain in power and oppress the people, etc. So I get it. I get the need for that in certain instances, but the way that the government was using it to collect all the information on United States citizens, which were supposedly protected by the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States on illegal search and seizure. Yeah, that's a really thin line to dance, and he went through a lot of trepidation before he actually took the action to say, I'm going to out this with the press and have them take control of this, and then I'm just going to erase it from my hard drive, not have control of it anymore, and allow the press to then disseminate what's going on with this stuff. And a lot of people immediately came out and, you know, Obama called him a low-level hacker and yada yada, which wasn't true. They tried to create a narrative that you know, always attack the source of the criticism, right? That's a standard operating procedure for anybody politically who, you know, you come out and say something against what they're doing and they try to attack you personally.
It's people don't realize, but that is what is known as psychological warfare.
Yeah. Right.
It is.
Yeah.
Psyops.
101.
Yeah. And so I was really surprised by all the detail that he put into the book regarding his decision. You know, first of all, his story of coming up into the position that he had, but then the trepidation that he went through to be able to make the decision to release all that information, and then what it turned out being, which was like, wow. And, you know, he laid the case for the whistleblowers that came before him being silenced and being pushed out of the community, and none of the information becoming public and stuff like that. And it's like he was expecting that his following the same channel would result in the same, you know, end result, which was he would tell somebody that he didn't think was right, and they would say, okay, go away, you're off this project now, and they're not going to release it, and then they're going to make promises about how to fix it internally, and then it never gets out to the public and nothing ever gets changed, because he's then just that guy who is, you know, sidelined, right?
And I think an important caveat to discuss before we kind of go into the weeds of this too is, I've had this discussion with another person too, and people don't look into it enough to figure this out on their own. But people are like, "Oh, well, he's in bed with Russia." No, he was on international work travel. He had a layover in Russia when the U.S. government canceled his fucking passport.
Right.
Guess what? Have you ever seen that dumb fucking movie with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Right, where he gets
Which one?
Damn it! What is the movie I'm thinking of though?
I have AIDS.
So off track.
Everything he says.
So
is a
Bubblegum
stitch.
shrimp.
If you're in country X and your home passport gets fucking disavowed, guess what, motherfucker?
You're not going anywhere.
You're stuck and at the will of the country you're stuck in.
Yeah,
and that's
because-
what happened.
Yeah, you can't even get on the plane.
He had a layover in Russia,
Right.
and his passport. That's how he found out.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, your passport doesn't work, and then he got put in custody, and like he didn't choose to go in Russia. People need to realize that wasn't a fucking choice.
Right.
He's not in bed with Russia. He's in bed in Russia.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
By
Yeah,
default.
and in his book, he even said that, you know, the Russians reached out to him and said, hey, if you could maybe help us with this stuff, we could make it a lot easier for you. And he was kind of like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'll pass.
And he doesn't hesitate to speak his honest opinion of Russia either.
Right. No, he doesn't. In
Yeah,
fact,
he doesn't blow sunshine up Putin's ass
right. Exactly.
like our president does.
Yeah, and he was up until recently.
You know, if Trump wants to do anything right by the American people, he needs to bring Snowden back and pardon him.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Trump will do that.
President Trump, if you're listening, bring Snowden back and pardon him, and explain to the American people that we have a constitution that isn't supposed to be broken for a fucking reason.
Right.
Even if it's not correct.
Even
right
if you don't
now,
follow it.
amend it.
Yeah. Even if you try to wave the flag of national security, right, which is the whole thing that everybody's trying to do with his proponents or his opposition is, well, we need that information for national security. We need to be able to backtrack and understand when we find somebody who's been a bad actor. We need to be able to retroactively look back through all of his connectome, all of his communications, and be able to identify the other people in his group, etc. And you know, there's a potential argument for that in a country that doesn't have a constitution that ensures our privacy, right? And so that's kind of his position, that he looked upon these internal programs at the NSA and said, this is not constitutional and I need to out this. And what's the best way I could do to out this stuff? And he was basically counting on the fact that his life was going to be ruined.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you pro Snowden or anti Snowden? I'll come out and say I'm more, it's grayscale. It's never just white and black, but I'm more pro Snowden than I am anti Snowden.
I'm 100% pro Snowden.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think you'd now see? Here's the
I don't
other
think
thing.
I would have had the balls to do what he did, though. To be honest.
Yes.
I have such respect for that.
Yeah.
He's not. What is he gaining right now? Yeah, he made a book, but who wouldn't have a book in that situation? And if you don't understand that, then fuck you for being so myopic.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand the actual, just how involved the situation is, and if you can't discern what's really going on from what the media is telling you, then you need to slow down and really think about your thinking.
Yeah. Now I kind of agree with that in that I'm pro the United States having the technology to be able to listen internationally to folks who might be a threat to the United States. Okay. I think we're kind of doing more things right than we're doing wrong. I think that this is a land of opportunity that allows for absolutely anybody to grow up and be president. I think
Clearly
you can be somebody who's born poor like I was and grow into prominence and be a leader of whatever it is you want to be a leader of, which is great. I think we're pro-democracy, we're pro-freedom, and so on the grayscale, yeah, there are some things we do wrong, but there's a lot of stuff that we're doing right. Should we have the technology to be able to fight the folks who are then trying to drag us down into the dirt and destroy us? Yes, we should. Should we implement that against United States citizens? Okay, I have a major problem there.
So
right.
I wanted to. I was looking up a quote because I didn't want to paraphrase this one because I know for a fact that this one gets misquoted all the time from Benjamin Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that dismisses our founding fathers for any fucking reason,
Yeah.
they were a lot smarter than probably most of us.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Definitely
really
most of us, probably all
absolutely,
of us.
absolutely most of us, probably all of us. So Benjamin Franklin said this, and this is the original quote. This gets misinterpreted all the time. He said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety."
I agree with that. Ben, are you pro Snowden or anti Snowden on the grayscale?
Or are you pro Eric Snowden?
I prefer his twin brother Eric. No,
His fictitious brother.
fictitious twin. Nah, I'm pro Snowden, but there's just an assload of context.
Right. Of course.
So, yeah,
of course.
I mean, I don't think that I don't think people understand that their privacy was ensured based on a lot of different circumstances, from infrastructure to like cultural etiquette to everything, in a completely different manner than it was guaranteed now.
Right.
Like the fact that we have cell phones and agree to these plans and send our data through a company and a provider or whatever, all of that stuff is, in my personal opinion, I think that's a forfeiture of privacy.
Yeah, if you don't believe that, next time you update iTunes, read every single fucking word.
Every
and then
time,
4
yeah.
days later, when you're done reading it nonstop, get back to us.
Yeah, so
that's how long it'll take you.
I think that if you own a cell phone, or if you own or if you subscribed back in the 90s or whatever, when there was landlines, if you subscribed to having a landline or any of those things, basically, if you're having a conversation with people outside of the federal mail service, like the post service, or in
Outside
person,
of a cup and a wire.
yeah, or in person, that even in person, like for the most part, if you're in a public venue, people can definitely legally eavesdrop on you all day, every day.
Right.
Because you can't impose on their freedom either.
Right.
So
they have the freedom to be able to pick the signals out of the air.
So there's a lot of gray area on what kind of freedoms are being imposed upon.
Right.
But I'm still pro Snowden for the fact that people should understand that and be made aware that they're being surveilled, even if it's completely unethical and legal.
Yeah, and these terms of service thing that you just mentioned, Doug, I shared this with you guys. I'll go ahead and share it with the audience right now. About a month ago, my son got on his iPad between 9:30 and 11:30, and so over 2 hours he spent upgrading this game that he was playing on his iPad, and spent $1,136.69 on gems.
Yeah, but what level is he at?
I know, right? He's a master at the game now. Actually, he doesn't have an iPad anymore. But in 2 hours, he spent over $1,000 upgrading this video game that he had. And we called Apple, and Apple is standing on their terms of service. Now, understand, legally, they executed a contract with a minor, which is a horrible thing. And supposedly, I should be able to sue them in a court of law and get damages based on my son's psychological damage and yada yada yada,
yeah.
over and above the $1,000.
Paper millions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And now I'm going to trash Apple to the point that until we have a huge audience and it starts costing them millions of dollars because they didn't give us $1,000 back, and we're actually going to fill out some fraud paperwork at the credit card company to make sure we get the $1,000 back. But yeah, they stand on their terms of service as a relinquish of our rights.
Yeah.
As human beings in the legal system of the United States, so that they can just say, no, we're going to keep your $1,000 and you're not going to get any of your money back, and tough.
And do you agree to the terms and conditions?
Right, exactly. Right.
But what sucks is, like, what are you going to do? Throw away every Apple device you have right now?
Right.
It would cost you even more to do that.
Yeah.
That's what sucks. It's like, vote with your dollar. Yeah, I get it. But what are you going to do? Grab another. We don't have millions of dollars. We're not millionaires.
Yeah.
We can't just buy new equipment.
Right.
Like,
and the terms of service
Or
for
develop
the
it.
terms of service for the telecommunications folks is the same. You give up a lot of the rights, and simply agreeing to use the cell phone, you give up a lot of the rights for them to be able to keep a lot of your information now. And before, when they were doing it illegally, which they then rewrote the law to forgive them for the illegal, like the Verizon was breaking the law, AT&T was breaking the law.
They're all doing it.
Right. And so they basically rewrote the law to give them forgiveness for all of the infractions that they made for the United States government, when the United States government said, basically, give us all the information about this stuff. Verizon
that's
was like,
part of the problem is they don't need a warrant because it's a private enterprise.
Yeah.
right.
It's a little ugly loophole.
Yes, you're right.
Like, hey, private entity, could I have X information? It's up to them.
Right.
And whatever agreements they have within their customers.
Yeah, and AT&T's been doing that forever, by
That's
the way.
a scary hole.
No, what's scary is that so many people think that our rights are being violated when they're just wittingly throwing them in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Now, I knew about this stuff years ago because I used to run a number of data centers for a large Fortune 100 telecommunications company that was basically one of the AT&Ts for the world. And so if you think, AT&T is big, I worked for a large company as well that had basically the rest of the world wired up. And anytime you left on international fiber, you were on their fiber to go make an international phone call or international internet trip or whatever it is you were doing. And so I had access to a lot of these data centers that were May East and May West, et cetera, where we had some of the gear that we had installed there, where there were 7 or 8 providers hooked up and cross communicating. And there was a floor in one of the major buildings in San Francisco for their communications that you did not have access to. It took a special key to get access to this floor, and no one had it, and no one knew who it was. Of course, everybody knew who it was. It was the freaking NSA. And all of the cable from AT&T and Verizon and the major providers went up to that floor. Right through the floor of from one data center floor to the other, went right up through that floor, and they were basically recording everything. They were capturing everything. Everything that was going through the internet was going through their servers. And that's why they built that multiple $million facility in Utah, I think it was.
Either there, Texas or Arizona or New Mexico or something.
Yeah, it was Utah.
Yeah, I think it was Utah. And because they basically are just burning up hard disks and storage devices, recording absolutely everything.
Yeah,
all your calls,
it's
all
not
your
a coincidence.
internet.
There's a lot of government funding for research behind data storage, new data storage technologies.
Right.
There's not a coincidence there.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, the data that they need to then retroactively go through and look at all your telephone calls, to look at and the recordings of some of the voice calls are there as well, if you're a person of interest, and all the people that you've talked to, all the emails that you've sent, all the unencrypted stuff that you sent over the internet. Every time that you have an insecure connection from your computer to an internet server, gets recorded there. And in fact, one of the things that was interesting was a little, story that came out just 7 or 8 months ago about 25% of the domestic internet traffic in the United States was being forwarded to China first, and they couldn't even.
I remember that.
They couldn't even find. It took them 2.5 years to find it because it was a BGP hack. That the Chinese government was basically doing the same with the same type of technology.
It's like here's our communication, right? And then our government's leeching over it, right? We didn't know this, right?
Yeah.
And then, joke's on you motherfuckers, China was leeching off that shit. Like, like, no, they were doing the same bullshit you were. Like, fuck you all.
Yeah, and then people wonder why I'm not stepping up and just offering the human algorithms, the human emotion algorithms of figuring out how to read people's minds to the world, because everybody's watching all the data, and we could tell which side of the fence you're on, even if you don't reveal what side of the fence you're on, right? So, so I kind of agree. I can.
A bunch of big black dick pictures. It's all they're gonna find out. I don't know. What sort of fence is that?
Yeah, it's actually. I read this article that I just made up right now that 80% of all the images stored are dick pics.
Yeah. So obviously, there's outliers to that.
I don't think anybody cares. I don't think anybody cares about what kind of porn you like, by the way, which is still like.
Well, apparently they do, because Edward Snowden's getting lit up about all these people fucking looking at blowjob videos.
Yeah, that's true. But I agree with him. I agree with him outing the technology that was being used against the American public. I will stand by that.
It wasn't used against anyone yet.
Well,
that we know of.
Yeah, that's my point.
Right.
The point is we don't have privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any.
We don't have privacy.
We don't keep privacy.
Right.
We had it. We didn't keep it.
We're in this nascent stage of communications technology to where we have a global communications network that connects us all, but at the same time, we don't have the laws that are in place to protect us all from everyone accessing that at any time that they wish, because they have the technical capability to do so, which is, I think, fucked up. And then Ed came out and said, like, I know him.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, your big Eddie, your bro Ed.
Me and Eddie. So Ed Snowden
Dog.
came out and basically said, hey, there are tools that they're being used to actually access your personal devices and all of your communication profile. And I got to agree that I think it was the right move. And I agree with you, Doug, that I don't think I'd have been able to be that guy to go to fly over to Asia and set up the meetings with the New York Times and the Globe or whoever it was that he released the information through to say, make this public. Man, that's fucking ballsy.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's why it kills me when people chalk him off as a traitor without at least like trying to understand the story itself.
Right. And I think he told that story great in his book. What did you guys think of the Rogan interview? I thought it droned on a little bit in comparison to the book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's important to remember he's not a professional speech giver. He's not a talk show host. By trade, he's a tech guy.
Yeah. He does speak well.
He speaks well, and he speaks really well for someone who's a hardcore tech guy.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of came through with the Joe Rogan interview. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great interview, but again, he's a tech guy by trade.
Yeah, whoever his Russian coach is doing really well.
And again, he's supposedly not working with the Russians. And I got to wonder about his personal life. I know he's got to keep it protected and whatnot.
Yeah.
You got to wonder.
He's got to eat too.
Yeah, he gets paid for his speeches. Obviously, he gets paid for speaking, etc. But you got to wonder what is Putin's long game on protecting him and keeping him over there. I mean, I know it's kind of a.
I have an opinion on this because I've thought about this.
Okay.
I think part of it is that just by Putin not killing him, if I can speak so callous, it shows a weakness in America.
Yeah.
Which to the powers that be is a bad thing. To people like us, is a good thing because weakness means there's room for growth and improvement.
Yeah, we can fix it.
I think that's why he lets him be.
Yeah.
I think that's why.
Because it's kind of a man after his own
living scar on America.
Yeah.
I think that's why.
Yeah.
The black guy. Not black guy, black eye.
Okay.
The black eye.
Yes. I think it is. I think it's and I'm not, again, I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's just as a whole, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's not what we're about.
It's an embarrassing chapter that I think Putin loves to say, hey, look at this. You guys aren't all that.
Yeah.
Because that's been his thing. Like
You're not all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
I just made that up, trademark.
I mean, because we're way ahead of them as far as technology goes, right?
Are we?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so.
They don't call it element 115 Atlantium.
Yeah, I believe they call it Moscovium.
True, but that just means they found it first.
It means they analyzed it first.
What's the definition of advanced?
All right, so they don't have the telecommunications technologies that we do, right? They don't have the ability to listen to all of their population's devices or all the international. Like, let me tell you guys, coming from telecommunications and understanding the technology and being one of the people who helped implement some of this technology that is in question, every device on the planet is accessible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even dial phones, to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some technology that even if your computer is not connected to the internet, we can get to it through the power grid.
Right.
We can get to the
If electrons are passed to and from it,
it can
there's
be
a path.
accessible. Yeah.
I would say be very careful, and if you want to break open your computer, then take a look at the chipset that's right off of the power supply of your devices.
Yeah.
You will find communication chips right off of the power supply of your devices that are designed, thanks to the early investments of the intelligence community, to be able to get to your data through non-standard communication technologies.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, I mean, it's not super well known, but it's not a super big secret either, right? You just do a little analysis of the chipsets and you'll be able to figure that out. But here's the thing. I think people need to be aware of what's going on with technology and the abuse of technology to interfere with people's privacy. So at the very least, you know that you need to be careful with what you're sharing around your devices and what you're talking about around your devices, etc.
You're too dumb to be alive if you don't realize that already.
Yeah, and I think Ed Snowden,
or at least stay alive.
Yeah, I think Ed Snowden helped us identify that. And from a national security perspective, the argument of national security versus traitorism of releasing secrets. I think there are some secrets that shouldn't be kept from the American people that are harmful to the American people. And I think he was in that position and he made that tough decision to...
Yeah, props to him.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, to say, you know what? We need to stop. Like there's a point where you go a certain extent and then you need to have a line of demarcation where you stop and you make that decision to say no more. And I think people went over that line. People who had access to the technology, people who thought,
yeah, absolutely.
And so he was like,
we
probably
go over
should...
the line. They were like, hey, you kids don't go into the ocean.
Yeah. They're like, we're kidding, we were swimming
But
here.
we're going to go back to the house. So you guys just hang out on the beach and whatever happens, we'll be back in like never.
Yeah.
bunch of kids at the ocean.
Yeah, we're going to let you play in the street. You're supposed to get out if traffic comes by, but we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Be back by the time the streetlights come on, but we're going to be out all night, so we won't know. We'll see you tomorrow.
The problem is the whole impetus of it was, to stop terrorism in America. Yeah, well, you're listening to, 10 million conversations. Less than 0% involve a terrorist most of the time.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are you collecting it?
Yeah, go collect all the bird scooters.
The ends
instead of
doesn't
all
even
that
justify
data.
the means. That's the problem. Is the ends doesn't okay? The ends shouldn't the ethical debate. The ends should never justify the means most of the time. 9.9 times out of 10. This one really doesn't justify the means
Egregious.
at all. It's so
egregious.
painfully egregious.
Yeah.
The ends does not justify the means. If they were like, I'm sure they could make shit up, but it's like, no one from the government would be like, oh yeah, we've stopped. Look at all these attempts we have.
You
stopped.
guys hear about all those assassinations?
Look at these. Look at these attempts we have stopped. There's been 14 9/11s we've stopped.
Right.
No, motherfuckers. Also, where the fuck were you then?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, but where the fuck were you then?
Yeah. And there was a good chapter in his book where he talked about the NSA was running, like when 9/11 happened.
Oh, and they evacuated all. That doesn't make sense to me.
No.
We should
It's
talk
like-
about that real quick.
Yeah, it's like you guys need to be on your job, at your desks, taking the
all
risk.
government buildings.
Yeah.
People that should have been at their watch stations,
Yes.
they're like, no, just leave for the day. Come back in a couple days.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Shit's getting weird.
Yeah.
Man, your stations.
Yeah.
Like, figure it out.
Yeah. When somebody's firing at you, you don't leave your post.
Yeah, and they had everyone leave their buildings.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I got to say, this is going to be a shorter episode than I anticipated it was going to be, but I think it's going to be,
we might circle back around.
Yeah, we should circle back around.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Well, I got to say, I'm thankful for the Edward Snowdens of the world.
Yep.
Absolutely.
100%.
And we shouldn't paint him with a broad brush to say just traitor because
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
he shared some secrets that people
Listen to
decided
girl.
were going to be secrets. I mean, there's some people in the White House right now in this administration who might be sharing secrets that shouldn't be secrets, or trying to protect secrets that shouldn't be secrets, based on protecting individuals that may have screwed up, right?
Yeah, it happens.
I mean, you just gotta say people are human and we screw up and we can fix it, and you don't try to label the folks who say, hey, we screwed up as traitors, because those folks are the folks who are going to help us fix stuff.
Especially when it's blatant information directly against one of our constitutional pillars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the foundation in which the country was built upon.
Yeah.
Come on. What do you guys think out there in our viewer world? Give us some comments of whether you think Snowden is a traitor or a patriot or somewhere in between. Where does he fall on your gray scale? We would love to hear your information so that we can follow up with those comments and include them in our future episode that's going to circle back around to talk about this a little more in depth. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon to make sure that you get all of the new releases of our content. We love you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.